disarming, right? Not so that if someone pulls a gun on you, you go, ha, gotcha, and take it from their hands. Does that make sense? Right? I teach gun disarming so you understand how the gun disarm works, so you don't lose your pistol. So now when you're in a confrontation, you're like, wow, I'm too close, or if I'm doing this or this, and you're like, someone's just going to snatch this thing out of my hand, I need to retract it. This is harder if I give myself a little bit of space. Remember we were talking about the projectile? Right? It's the opposite. Like our natural reactions, our instincts don't understand projectiles. So what we naturally want to do is counterintuitive to what we should be doing with a projectile type of weapon system. So we do the gun disarm so that we understand how it works, so we can reverse engineer it so we don't lose it. So as we come and we start doing some of this stuff, and you see when we're doing the CQB stuff, and you're like, okay, this is hard, this is tricky. I get to a spot where there's two doors that are across from each other. If I'm moving by myself, how do I look into this room without exposing myself there? I can't, right? So now, the mindset of this, most people, when they're something's happening in their home, is they go in a room and they shut the door. Does that sound normal? Like go in the room, hide, shut the door. So now, if I'm walking down a hallway, here's a bad guy coming up the staircase, and I come up to that foyer upstairs, and we have 3 bedrooms, a closet door, and a bathroom door, and all the doors are closed. Which one's my priority of threat?
First one.
Maybe the one that's closest proximity. Is any one of these doors dangerous to me right now?
Yes.
Yes, they all are.
Ish, right? But is there an obvious danger?
They're not open. So
If I'm moving around in the foyer, can anyone see me moving around in the foyer?
No.
Can anyone specifically aim at me? So I have things of concern, but I'm not in immediate danger because all the doors are closed, which blocks line of sight, and no one can see me, right? Now, if I come up and all 5 doors are open, how do I choose which one to enter? How do I clear any one room without making entry, without exposing myself to 4 other threats?
Yeah, whichever one takes least slices of the pie, if that's even an option.
There's no right answer to this.
Yeah.
If it's just you, if you're the bad guy, if there's 1 or 2 dudes, you're in a really bad situation. They might not understand it because they might not be trained, but you cannot tackle the angles that are being presented to you, right? There's too much information to process, and there's too many angles for you to effectively hold down and do it safely.
He's leading you to a good solution and a good place, guys.
Right? So if someone's breaking into my house and I think someone's downstairs and I want to set up an ambush position, I don't set up an ambush position where I shut the door to my room and hide behind the bed, and if they open the door, I now shoot them, right? I'm now like, could you do that? Theoretically, yeah. But if I come out and there's someone in my house downstairs, and I'm looking around and I have 5 doors, if I open up all the doors quietly and then go back into my room, when they come up, right, and they look and there's 5 doors with all sorts of angles coming their way, they don't know which one to prioritize, and they don't know how to take any given angle without exposing themselves to an open angle. Does that make sense? And now your ability to set an ambush and shoot them from the room into the hallway is much higher, right? And you can secure the bedroom and defend that. And if they're looking like this into one of the doors, and boom, a gunshot rings through, do they know which other 4 rooms it came from?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, right? So now all of a sudden, again, there's a delay in that, right? But if we shut the doors, it makes it way easier. And as we start doing this, again, coming out of here, right, you'll start to go, okay, well, where should we be? And if you go try to clear your house, discussing the angles that we've covered this weekend, move to your house, and when you get to the spot, you're like, dude, how the hell do the 2 of us clear this? And look how many angles there are. That's a great spot for an ambush position. And how do you see that from one of those other areas? Does that make sense? Right? And then that's where you can start to set the trap. The dangerous areas normally are going to be hallways, right? There's a few things that are dangerous about hallways. One, it usually has multiple entrances to it. And the other thing is you're stuck in a tight corridor. You're in a narrow funnel, right? That's like, we don't like the fatal funnel right here because we have to come through this narrow corridor. That's essentially you're walking continuously in a doorway all the way down the hallway, right? The other thing with that is you have like stairwells. So stairwells are hard. Again, now you have a tight corridor going up from one space to another. The other person has advantage of like a height advantage, and they have to go through this corridor to get to you. So if you have a foyer with a couple of bedrooms overlooking a stairwell, that's an awesome spot because as they come up, it's going to be really hard for them to navigate the stairs and then get in. They can only move so fast because they're on a staircase. You know what I mean? And it just makes it more complex. So as you start to go back and look at the angles in your home, you can start figuring out what is the best place for me to set up those ambush positions, you know, in my space.
So what he's saying is all this offensive stuff is for you to really understand how to set up a good ambush, which is the most realistic scenario for you as a husband and wife to be in your home rather than going after the bad guy and maybe exposing yourself to unnecessary risk rather than calling a SWAT team, letting them take care of that. And you just ambush somebody and smoke them. But really knowing all those angles and knowing how to understand the game, you can really put a wrench to somebody else's game. You know?
Yeah. It's harder to go seek out than it is to wait. Right? But we train the military and the police to go seek out because that's their job.
But in a home defense scenario, it's much better to wait if we've got.
If you have the ability to, I mean, you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know how many guys are there. Like, so the police are gonna win eventually. You know what I mean? Like, even with the thing, oh, my brain's not working. In Texas, with the
Waco?
Waco, right? They waited for like a month or two. Like, eventually we're gonna win. We're the government. We're gonna bring all the resources here. We're just gonna wait you out.
Escalated.
You know what I mean?
It's kept
And it kept escalating. But my point is they're coming to get you, right? And the government's on their side. If someone's coming to break into your home to steal your stuff, to kidnap you, or to do something like that, revenge, I don't know what it is, right? If the car alarm goes off, if you set off the burglar alarm, if you're making phone calls to 911, if the neighbor reports gunshots, like, people are coming, and if that person's still there, they're gonna get arrested. Does that make sense? Like, the government's not on their side, hopefully. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, the situation's different. If I get into a shootout, they might leave, right? They don't have the resources to lock down my house and to play the waiting game and wait me out and eventually win. So normally in all those attacks, home invasions, as soon as someone starts shooting back at them, what does everyone do?
They run.
They run. Does it make sense? So I could go try to find them and meet them and give them to a surprise, or I could go, I know my structure, I know which places are dangerous. Unless I have to move, I might have to move a little bit to get into a good spot, right? But then in that case, you know, I can just wait and just do the thing we talked about, call 911, put the phone down, wait, and let them walk into the trap. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, if there's two of you, you could set up 2 angles and have 2 traps, right? So as they're coming up, if they do this, I got them. If they do that, you got them. Do you know what I mean? If there's kids involved, then the kids' safe space, don't put them in a room necessarily with the door closed. Like, you could, I would say more so if you understand where's your ambush, take the kids and put them offline of that line of what the exchange would be. If the bad guys are going to come up, get shot out, and dump into a room, which room would they dump into? Don't put the kids in that room. Does that make sense? So even if you bring them into the room that you're in, whatever that line is, take them. They don't have to be behind you, because if you're not wearing like body armor, have a ballistic shield or something like that, right? I don't want to stand in front of someone and be the bodyguard if my body's not going to stop the rounds. So I don't put them behind me. I put them off the line of exchange and put them in a safe position out of that line. And if they were to try to engage me through the walls, which angle would that be from the walls right here, right? I make sure that line doesn't continue. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if there was that door, or like if it was this, if we were looking at this, then maybe I could put the kids, some people would say you put the kids in that corner because it's farther away, it feels less scary. Maybe that's a good idea, right? But when we look at this fan, right, we look at this V, which part is not seeing the V? These corners. So although this is closer to the bad guy, right, in proximity of the room, right, this is a safer corner because there's less angles. And that's one of the things we're knocking heads with the teachers in these active shooter things with the kids. And they take the kids and they put them in the back corner of the classroom and everyone hides in the back corner. And it's like, what can't you do? Like when we talk about the active shooter response, if you're in the back, what'd you give away? Space and distance. Now you have no way to defend yourself at the door because everyone's in the back. If they're in the back corner, right, I can shoot everyone in one little pile, but also I can see them in the back corners from here, so I can shoot at them in the back corners of the room without actually entering the room. This is a little more difficult, or a closet off the side. Does it make sense? So if this dude's bouncing back and forth, you know, here, shooting into the room, where are those angles? Put the people outside of those angles. Does that make sense? Any other questions?
I'm talking